Welcome back. We're now looking at the model that we talked about before, the 4Drive model, and how it works in teams and creates highly effective teams. We've read about it, but now I'm very glad that we have Gina and Perry here with us who can share a little bit from your work experience and what way this may be a meaningful way of understanding when a team works or when it doesn't work, right? So let me just sort of go over with you over the basic model, right? And the basic model is there is human nature, and even if we dispute that, there's a way that we think about ourselves and others, right? And that matters in how we relate to each other. And one way of looking at people is to say we're all sort of in it for ourselves, and basically it's very difficult to work in teams, right? Because everybody's opportunistic, Gordon Gekko style, and just sort of like not trustworthy. And then there's another model of looking at it, is the 4Drive model, which suggests that we do have a drive to acquire things that we need and to defend them, right? And that we also are fundamentally social, and we have a drive to bond that we need to address in different ways. That's how we have done things. That's why we have teams, right? That's why we collaborate. And then the fourth piece is the drive to comprehend, which basically says, yes, we need to have a higher purpose. So do you recall from your sort of experiences anything in terms of teams that have worked that play with either model, the just sort of economistic maximization model where people are basically just in it for themselves, or the other model where they potentially are fulfilling these drives? Anything that comes up for you?
Yeah, I think the first thing I think about, when I was 19 years old, I got a job selling timeshare. And yeah, it's just something that they told me I'd be good at. 'Cause I'm a good speaker, apparently. And so it was presented in the economistic model, where you get your numbers, you meet your numbers. Who cares if the family can't really afford it? Get the sale and move on to the next one. But I got really good at it. And I got good at it, I think, in the context of this conversation, because I abandoned that model without saying so, or without knowing that that's what I was doing. Because I was raised in a collectivistic family, and so we just didn't behave that way. And so I was bringing some of those values, maybe without knowing, and that I found myself connecting with families, bonding with families, finding out what their actual needs are, and that kind of thing. And my sales were high, they dipped, and they went back up, but they responded to the human condition more than the sort of needs of the organization.
Interesting. Do you have a similar comparable experience, or?
Well, I think it's important, society, we are social beings, we really exist to socialize, even though we try to tell ourselves not the differently. But, I think it's important for a team, if you're collaborating, to be heard within that team. And I think sometimes, if you're only doing it in an egotistical way, that's not inclusive. You're not hearing everyone's thoughts and their values and their shared perspective into an ultimate decision. And so I think collaboration and bonding socially in that way can really be a fortifier for a team to be able to execute it on goals or strategies. That makes sense.
And what if you're talking about your individual experience as a sales agent, have you had any experiences with the sales team?
Yeah, I mean, we were on sales teams. We, each person had like a manager, and then it was four of us under that, person, and under that sales manager. And we came together and we talked about our strategies, and this is where the economistic part came out of me, right? Or the need to defend, right? Is that I never told anyone how closely connected I became with these families. I just said, oh yeah, it's just, I use the regular strategy that everyone else is using, and it works for me. Because I needed to keep the highest numbers on my team.
Why did you feel that you needed to?
Because you get bonuses, and so the need to acquire. The need to acquire was definitely there, and then there was I think that I was sort of using my team in a way to get my personal needs met without considering theirs. For that reason, we had a lot of turnover. We had very poor retention, except for me. And I stuck it out. I was the last person standing on the team, and then we got some other people who were more ambitious than me, and this is where my model fell apart, because there was someone better than me who could do what I could do and better. And I think also I was just sort of burnt out because I'm not getting that nourishment from the team. I'm only taking from them in a selfish utilitarian way, but not taking from them to where we are mutually nourishing each other. And so that burns me out too.
Very important. And students, I want you to pay attention to what he's saying, because this is just pointing to what I consider the human condition, right? Because if you're trying to do something and be somebody else and fit into a mold and a different blueprint than who you really are, you're getting burned out. You should be burning out, right? You should not necessarily be very successful in the long run. You can sustain it for a little bit. But I'm just curious, like, if other teams had a similar experience, or if in other teams you had a different experience.
Yeah, on other teams, I would say, for example, I later became a Chicago Public Schools teacher. And that was one where we really had to stick together. Certainly we had a desire to acquire, but our salaries were fixed. They didn't change. I think when you take away, and we were all tenured. And so what essentially the system did for us is it took away the inflammatory, vitriolic competitiveness that comes with protecting your needs, protecting your need to acquire and the need to defend what you acquire. When those needs are sort of automatically met, it makes it so much easier to feed the need to bond, right?
To be a team,
and it feeds the need to go beyond this is the job. In something like education, where you have a bunch of students in front of you, that's important. You have to be like, well, what does it mean to be an educator? Am I also a co-parent in a way? And so that's the need to comprehend, like this idea that I'm making meaning out of the space in ways that's not necessarily prescribed in my contract. But that's because those other, I think, more basic needs were met.
And did you find that team experience more meaningful?
Oh yeah, the three of the 5 people on my team are still my lifelong friends. We don't work together anymore, but we're still lifelong friends. And any time, it's interesting because we don't work. The team itself doesn't work in the same space, but the team has never left each other, right? So we need anything career-wise, letters of recommendation, anything. We're still there for each other. And I think if we ever came back to work together, we would be unstoppable in whatever we did.
Okay, great. Well, what I want to point out, though, is that there was a condition set with intention, with the tenure system, with the fixed salary, that once you accepted that there was nothing to debate around, right? This was not necessarily like your sales job.
Right, very different.
Where you needed to sort of defend and maybe play and have teammates that were doing poorly, and you would benefit from them doing poorly. I would want to point out to you students that probably is the definition of a bad team. One that doesn't work together and doesn't necessarily bring the best results about, witnessed by the turnover that you were mentioning, right? And just people not being burned out, not being able to continue with this job. On the other hand, this experience with the teachers, where it's like it's a meaningful engagement, and you create that meaning, and you're having a good experience with people. You create being friends, right? And one of the things that we know, what people love about a job when they're engaged, is having friends at work. That's very critical, and not just like networkers or being superficially connected and friendly, but on a much more human level. And that seems to be the case for what you're describing here.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Do you have any similar experiences or any additional?
Well, I would just like to point. I think those are great examples, and I think it shows the bond that they have and they share. That it doesn't matter the context or environment. That the bond that they've acquired together really shows the collaborative nature of a team that really can be used to do something different, show a positive result. And I think that bond is important to have in a collaborative team because if you're not bonded, you're not collaborative, you're not really a team. You're individuals coming together.
Right.
And so that distinction, I think, is important.
Yeah, and we would call that a group.
Right.
So like people coming together,
Yeah.
doing their individual thing. Maybe then they just disband, but they're not necessarily part of this team. The way that we would think about it. But you're working in the nonprofit space, so it's a little bit of a different space from the traditional business that we might be thinking about. On the other hand, people would say this is for people that want to have a purposeful job. Is that the case for you? Is that why you were in that job? Did you have any other jobs, and why did you potentially switch? And how is teamwork in comparison?
Well, it's interesting because of my role within a nonprofit is business development. So I'm constantly pulling that tug between being collaborative in nature, but also trying to acquire, defend, or what have you. And I think, being in a nonprofit environment, I think also breeds, to some degree, an insecurity if you don't have a level of collaborative nature in a team to really drive you to success. For me, I think a team, is important. I think collaborative nature is important. And I think, in a nonprofit space, I think, in my role in business development, sales and teams and coming together is important because then I can't do my job effectively. If I'm working with a team that's not collaborative, that's disjointed, that we're just kind of coming together to do something, that doesn't help in my business development efforts. It doesn't help with my client relationships. It doesn't help in putting forth a product and making sure that it's successful. And so I think it's important to always, have certain things to drive you. And that collaborative nature, to me, especially in a nonprofit role, knowing that your mission is critical each and every day, and using that mission to try to excel and drive some business objectives. You got to have that balance.
Have you worked in other organizations besides this one?
I've only worked in nonprofit.
Okay, can you just share with the students and with us why you made that decision?
It was more of it wasn't intentional, to be quite honest. It wasn't.
But you stuck.
I stuck with it because, and I think that goes back to your passion, your purpose. I think for me, having that duality of not only being able to do something business related, but really have a tangible result and a mission that I am contributing to society in a different way, and what my role is, and that is in the context of a charity. I think for me, I have a business mind and a charity kind of spirit, and my role within the nonprofit sphere kind of merges those together, which for me has been good.
Great. What I want to point out to students is just listen to her, listen to Gina explain her passion, and in some way also, Perry, you're pointing to that in the different experiences that you had. There is this fundamental drive to comprehend, to make meaning, to do something with purpose, right? And when we do that, it feels better. Right? It just feels better. It's more enlivening. You create friends around this, right? You probably have, I don't know how your relationships are at work, but
they're great. Yeah, people make you stay.
Yeah, people make you stay.
Yeah.
People make you stay. So the bonding supports that. And so if you're able to balance these things out and have the money that you need, right, and the safety that you want, then you're probably able to create a team environment where you really can be the best that you want to be, and where a team can achieve the kind of results that you're set out to achieve as well. So, students, I just want to point that out to you. You just heard from Gina and Perry about their practical experience. So think about it yourself. What experiences you had working in teams. You've always been working in teams. We're social by nature, so you'll be working in teams no matter what. You'll be playing sports in teams. You'll be learning in teams. You'll be doing things together with people. And then understand, when did you have the best experience, and maybe look at when did you have the worst experience. Because that can give you some potential insights into when those drives were balanced and when they were imbalanced. And I think that can give you access and empower you to creating situations that you would want to be in, teams that you would want to be part of.